Hey guys, welcome back once again to Niagara Fire Corals. Today we're going to go over our RODI system. We're going to show you how to maintain it, how to change out all the filters, the DI, so we can ensure that we're putting pristine water into our systems. Stick with me, we're going to head to the sump room and we'll start changing everything out now. Alright guys, so here we are at my RODI system that I'm using for 450 gallons. And just to give you a quick rundown, this line here coming in, this is my direct city water. Comes into this first chamber, which is a sediment filter. Goes through the second chamber, which is a carbon filter. The third chamber, which is another carbon filter, comes out of there, up and into the RO membrane. Goes through the RO membrane. Once it leaves the membrane, it travels down, goes through this DI canister, exits the DI canister to my water holding areas. And as you can see, if I can get in here, I'm now reading 0.01. When I start reading 0.01, I know it's time I'm going to change out my filters and my DI. I like it always at 0. It's been 1 now for about a week. So we're gonna change out the filters and the DI today, and I'll show you guys how I go about doing that. All right guys, so when you're gonna start changing the filters on your RO system, if you have a pressure gauge, as I do right there, just make sure your pressure gauge is on 0. You don't want to be cracking open where your filters are in that if they're under pressure. So when you're going to begin changing your filters out, you will turn off your water. This is the city water line coming in. I just shut that off so I won't have pressure. And then you just crack your units loose. If I go the right way, I'll just crack each one loose. Those are all cracked loose. And we'll start taking them out. So as you can see, that sediment filter was ready to be changed. That's supposed to be crystal clear, snow white, and it's obviously not. All right, so that's the sediment filter. The next one that I put in is the coconut shell carbon. And the very last one is another carbon filter. So those have all been removed. We'll head out to my shelf that I have in the other room. We'll take a look at the new filters that I'm going to put in, and then we'll come back and we'll get them put in. So as you can see, I always try to keep a good supply of these. I purchased these from a company called Max Water. I'll put a link in the description below. They have excellent deals on big kits. That's what I normally buy. You'll buy a big kit. Comes with all the filters plus the DI resin. Check them out. They're a great place for buying this stuff from. So I'm going to grab the filters we need. We'll head back to the other room and we'll start installing them. Alright guys, so we'll start out with the sediment filter. The ones I get, they're 5 micron. They work perfectly fine for me. I know some people go finer than that. 5 micron has worked fine for me for years. And that's all I use. So I'm just going to open this up. We'll get it in that first chamber. We'll get that installed. Super easy guys, you just drop it in there. You want to make sure it's in the center. and then just screw it back up into place. I just do them hand tight, and then I just give it a little bit of a snug with the wrench, and that's it. That's all you need. Okay, so that's the first one. The sediment filter's in place. Next, I put in the coconut shell carbon. The operating pressure on this one, as you can see, is 35 psi to 100 psi. Service life, 3,000 gallons. Again, nothing fancy. It works. Once we get all these in, I'll show you how I flush the system. You always want to do that first for anything that might come out of these filters at the beginning. And then we'll see that the the TDS goes back to 0. Same thing, just drop it into the canister, make sure it's in the center, hand tighten, and then again I'll just give it a little bump with the wrench afterwards, make sure it's tight. That's all it takes. Last but not least, this is another carbon filter. It polishes the water before it goes to the membrane. They all go in exactly the same. Just drop them in so they're in the center. Put it up into place. Screw it down. Hand tight. And then I'll go over these now with the wrench. Just like that. Just like that. Just like that. That's it. Okay, that quickly. We have changed all 3 of the filters in there, and we're ready to do the DI. All right, so the DI isn't any different. Crack it loose with the wrench. Remove it. Now this is exactly the same as a coconut shell, except I can remove the DI from this and I can refill it because this is a refillable chamber. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get this opened up, I'm going to empty out the DI, I'm going to refill this, and then we'll come back and we'll get this installed. All right, so we got the new DI in here, filled it up, made sure it's full to the top. We'll take our canister, just drop it in, that's it. Screwed in place. Snug it up with the wrench. That's it. We've changed all the filters and the DI. So we're ready to turn the system back on and flush it. So we'll get going on that now. I'll show you guys how I flush it. And then we'll see what our reading is after we flushed it and we're putting out good water again. Okay guys, now that we have all the filters back in place, we have brand new DI in there. The old filters have been removed. Just going to come over here to my apex and I'm going to turn on my DI, my RO DI. And over here at the unit, this here is a bypass. It bypasses and what it'll do is it'll flush my membrane for me. I always flush the membrane every time I change all my filters. So I'm going to turn this on. Okay, that's in the on position, and then I'll turn the water back on. So right now it's just going to go ahead and it's going to fill. And that's water being bypassed, and it's going directly in the drain here. So I'm going to let this run here for the next 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll come back once we close that valve off and we actually start making RODI water, and we'll see what our readings are. Okay, so what I've done, I've set up a separate pail, and that line is what I use for filling up for my water changes. That's from the RODI unit, and I'm going to run the first 5 gallons of water or so through the unit into this pail rather than to my system, and then I'll let it start going to the system after that. So that'll just flush anything that might be in the filters and things like that, flush them out into this pail rather than them going in the tank. So we'll get over here. It's been flushing now. See if we can get a reading there. So that's at 42 before the membrane, but this is while it's flushing. So I'm just going to close off the flushing valve. You can see the pressure is gone up now on the RODI. This will gradually start going down. Right now it's just filling everything up. I'd like to see this number down around 1 or 2. So I'm going to let this fill up, and then we'll come back and we'll check on it. Okay, so we're back. It actually came down to 0 coming out of the membrane, which is actually better than I expected. I usually get 1. But so that's at 0 coming out of the membrane. Going into the membrane, it's 105. Out of the membrane, 0. So my membrane, not an issue with it. So here's the TDS coming out of the RODI, like the DI unit. Water hasn't hit this yet, so that's why it's reading 0. It's just filling up now. Water's just getting in there. But we are going to see that number is going to jump when water starts going through it. Once the water gets up here, and then it should come down to 0. So we'll come back once this DI chamber is filled up. So I missed it, guys, to show you when it first went through the DI, it was coming out of there at 0.07, and it very quickly dropped down to 0. But here it is. We're making clean water. It's just pushing some air out of the system still. But I'll take you back. We'll have a look. We're still reading 0 coming out of the RO membrane. And we're reading all 0s across the board coming out of the DI. That's the way I like to keep my filter. So I was due. Again, I buy all my stuff from Max Water. You can see it there on the unit itself. I'll put a link in the description below. Go check them out. They sell huge packages. You saw all the filters I had. They all came in like one package for a couple $100, and I've already used several of them. Plus it came with DI. So check them out. Anyways, guys, I'm going to keep this one short, but that's taking care of your RO membrane. It's just as important as everything else. All right, guys, thanks for sticking with me and walking through the maintaining and changing of the filters on my RODI unit. Just remember, the inhabitants of your tank, corals, fish, they're going to appreciate the water that you're putting in here to keep them healthy and safe. And it all starts with your RODI water. Keep that unit running at 0 TDS, and your tank will thank you for it. That's all I have for today, guys. Again, thank you for sticking with me. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. And until the next time, take care and happy reefing.